In this part, we're going to be looking at headers. So we'll be implementing a specific font for all of the headers that we're going to be using on our page. And this is Lato or Lato, or however you want to pronounce it. So we'll be applying this to our custom style sheet here. So we'll be adding a selector for H1, H2, H3, H4, H5, and we'll be going ahead and setting this specific font family. Now we've already done this, so this isn't too bad. But let's hop over to Google Fonts, and I've got this open here. Again, you can just go and Google for it. This is the font that we need, and we can go ahead and view this inside of Google Fonts. So again, I'm, at this point, I know which, weights I'm going to be using, but I'm going to go ahead and choose all of them just in case I get to a point where I feel like, I might want to include a different weight. We can always experiment with things and remove these later. So over to my text editor again, I'm going to go ahead and paste this in here. Go ahead and get rid of this type attribute, which we don't need, and I'm going to go ahead and change these single quotes to double quotes to keep in consistency with the rest of our page. Okay, so now that that's done, that's not really done anything on our page here because we don't have any headers and we've certainly not set any styles. So the next thing to do is head over to here. I'm going to go ahead and create a comment here, and we'll be adding comments for each sort of thing that we're styling, just so we can glance down our style sheet and see what we've styled and what we haven't. So I'm going to call this headers, and I'm going to select H1, H2, H3, H4 and H5, and I'm going to go ahead and set the font family to Lato, or Lato, however you want to pronounce it. So now what we can do is go ahead and just try this by creating a few headers. So I'm going to say header 1, I'm going to go ahead and paste this down, 2, 3, 4 and 5, 2, 3, 4 and 5, 4 and 5, and go ahead and change these as well. So H1, H2, 3, 4 and 5, and 2, 3, 4 and 5. Okay, so let's go ahead and look at what that looks like. And there we go. So we've included this different font for all of these headers. You can see that that's applied here. And that's just going to allow us to adhere to the design with the headers, certain headers here. And it's going to just make it look as intended. So now that we've got headers set up, that doesn't mean that we're just going to be using H1, H2, H3, H4 and H5 as usual. We're actually going to be changing the sizes. We're going to be changing the fact that do we want them to be all uppercase, or some of them smaller than others. We're going to be doing that within each of the sections, so we're going to define them within each of the sections as we go ahead and build them. So that is basically it for header fonts. We've included a new font, set the font family, and we can go ahead and tweak these later on as required.